another thing that I just saw, which was Jocko Willink was on Jordan Peterson's podcast.
That is two very intense individuals right there.
There was a very interesting moment where, and I was like, this is the question that I've wanted to ask Jocko since I read his book. And Jordan says, basically, what do you think of the Iraq War? You know, it seems to me that there was this horrible attack in New York, and it wasn't, in a classic Petersonian phrasing, it wasn't obvious to me why we were in Iraq afterwards. And Jocko takes, I don't know, 5-ish, 10-ish minutes to preface the question with how it's important, and leaders often have strategic ideas in mind that you don't see, and kind of wraps it up. And Jordan comes back, and I was like, thank God. He says, what do you think about Iraq if you were in a leadership position? And he does finally come around at the end of his answer to saying, I was in the torture chambers of Saddam Hussein, and I saw these hooks, and I thought, I'm not mad that we're taking this guy out. And while I understand that perspective, I guess this is the difference between him and me. He was on the ground, and I can look at, cold, hard numbers on Wikipedia. It does seem like Jocko is someone who might be a senator one day, that's poor decision making. Like, if someone has a torture chamber, then we should start a war.
You're saying because it's not that it was a bad thing to lose Saddam Hussein as the leader of Iraq, but because it came at the cost of American lives, Iraqi civilian lives, $2 trillion. Like, not that if you could, with no one knowing, snap your fingers and have Saddam replaced with a nice president, that you wouldn't do that.
Sure.
But you're saying just because he has hooks in his interrogation room doesn't necessarily mean it's worth killing 100,000 civilians, a bunch of U.S. soldiers, spending $2 trillion.
I was waiting for him to sort of articulate his principle, and this is as close as he came in the answer, was I was not upset that we took this guy out, which is like, man, if we invaded every person with a torture chamber with the same reckless abandon that we did in Iraq,
weren't we
to take bad guys out?
Electrocuting people at one point?
No, we were waterboarding.
No, wasn't there?
Waterboarding
Waterboarding is legal.
Yeah.
Weren't we illegally electrocuting people at some point?
It's wild. It's and I think he would, I don't know. This is the thing. He didn't, it seemed a difficult question for him to answer. And I would really like...
Google that on your phone real quick? I'm just curious.
I'd be super curious to hear it, because Jordan kind of got semi-pointed twice and then let off. But it seems, this is the question I've heard him talk about, and sort of about leadership within the context, but he's never really gone into, like, we shouldn't have been there, which is what seems the obvious answer. Like, why were we there? There's a lot of other places that have bad leaders that are unkind to their civilian population. At the time, in 2003, it seems that Iraq wasn't even at the very tippy top of the list. Didn't have weapons of mass destruction, didn't have all of these other things. We shouldn't have been there, and I'm surprised but interested in why he doesn't say that. And I'm interested because he's got a very different perspective than me, and was on the ground, but I was unpersuaded just by what I heard him say. Yeah, and I wonder, and this is something that we've talked about in the past that I've wrestled with, is like, if you're a leader, is it better to be in the high tower looking at surveying the world and the battlefield, disconnected, making cold, rational, objective decisions? Or is it better to be the guy that's like in the blood and the muck and sees the hooks and knows viscerally firsthand? I don't know. Yeah. But it does seem that that's a danger.
Well, there's a lot
too close to it.
I imagine there's a lot of countries with hooks.
Yes. Oh yeah.
So
you made the point that America has places that are not or had, and may still, that are not completely far from that. Yes, there's no hooks, but it's like we find ways to torture you that are within the rules, or
well, I'm saying even if you're just like, our public policy is, if you have a torture chamber, we invade you and we kill 100,000 of your civilians and we let our own people die and we spend $2 trillion. I don't even think Iraq would be the #1 place you'd pick.
That's definite. I don't know definitely, because I'm not it seems safe to say.
It seems unlikely it's the #1
yes.
place for torture.
Yes.
I would bet the world. If you gave me Iraq or the world, I would bet the world. In 2003?
Yes.
Pretty comfortably. I bet the world.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would, it's like going back and buying Bitcoin. That seems like a really safe bet.
Yeah. So even if that is your policy, is torture's bad, the U.S. doesn't torture, that was propaganda, we waterboard, it's different, hooks are evil, and you invade hooks. I still don't think this thought process would get us into Iraq first.
Yeah.
It might be on the list of places we invaded.
Yeah.
But
He did have an interesting point, and he thinks of it, again, he thinks of it from a soldier's, his perspective, which is someone who was going over there. And what I thought was an interesting point is, if somebody gives you a ridiculous objective, like you're going to go storm that hill that is heavily fortified, and he takes everything back to tacticals, because I think that's his world.
Yeah.
They're going to invade this. There's a hill. They're heavily fortified. They got more men, more machine guns, whatever. And they say, you got to go do this. And you think it's a horrible idea. If you don't do it, you abdicate any control over that situation to someone else who might just do it worse. So what he says is, I prefer to be the guy that says, oh, I don't like this, but I'll do it so that I can have some control over a very terrible situation.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying he should have dishonorably discharged himself. That's totally different. Saying that if you were trying to stop torture, you wouldn't invade Iraq in 2003 is a completely different sentence than saying the soldiers sent there by the U.S. should have abdicated their duty and fled. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying I don't think that I have to think it was a good idea by the president and the senators who voted for it to still think that the soldiers performed their duty or whatever. Like, I have no opinion on the soldiers. Or that it
could be the right thing to do. Go, look, this is going to be war. It's going to be brutal. And if I go, I can try to make it a little less brutal, or, not pull the trigger on that one person who might be a civilian. Just to
be clear, I know so little about being on the ground in Iraq that I have no judgment at all towards the people who did it, and if they did it well or poorly, because I have no information besides probably misinformation. My critique is on the decision made by the politicians to go there based on faulty logic. So yeah, this isn't to say Jocko did anything bad when he was there. He might have. I don't know anything about it. But this is just saying, yeah, the crap we were fed by Bush to get us there and justify it is not true. And saying that it's because they have torture chambers is also not true, because I think other places have torture chambers.
I found it interesting that he struggled, or not even struggled, doesn't think that, and it was just, I was like, damn. Hope that you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more like this and have us do more podcasts, we are 100% funded by our generous patrons. And if you'd like to contribute, there's a link in the description, and we'll have one pop up on the screen right here so that we can do more podcasts where we have fun conversations and hopefully some deep ones like this. Either way, hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.